hard work and creative talent, for all the potential that exists in this country, too much is squandered amidst the political dysfunction and economic instability. Every successful business that I meet has a clear business plan, a sense of purpose. We must ask, why isn't it the same for the British government? Why, in place of that sense of clear, united purpose, do we see short-term thinking, division, and all too often chaos? Where is the sense of purpose to bring together the public and private sector, national and local leaders, in a spirit of partnership? Now, Keir's speech in Manchester last week was important, a key moment for the Labour Party in setting out the ambition that the next Labour government will show, an alternative to sticking plaster politics. The commitment that we're making is this, that with Keir in number 10 Downing Street and with me at the Treasury, in the place of chaos, of instability in our policy making and in our politics, we will have a mission-led government, future-facing and guided by clear and ambitious priorities. Those ambitions must start with the economy, because the deep challenges we face today are just one chapter in the longer story of economic decline, of low growth, low productivity, and low investment. That's not just a matter of lines on a graph. It has deep implications for our public services, for every family, every business, every town and every city, and the potential of us as a country. Now, I started my career at the Bank of England. I was assigned to monitor the Japanese economy during what was known as Japan's lost decade. We now speak about Japan's lost decades. So I know something about what can happen to an economy once the envy of the world, if it becomes trapped in a cycle of low growth, lost confidence, and weak demand. Believe me when I say, I know that what we are announcing in this mission is a huge challenge, and the scale of the challenge ahead is immense. But it's because we are ambitious of Britain that we have to be bold. Our mission is to secure the highest sustained growth in the G7, with good jobs and productivity in all parts of the country, making everyone, not just a few, better off. Based not on a naive hope, but on a new approach, guided by the understanding that wealth doesn't just trickle down from the top. It comes from the bottom up and the middle out, from the talent and efforts of millions of working people and thousands of businesses. The key is contribution. If we want our country to fill its potential, then we can't just draw upon the contribution of a few people, a few businesses, or a few places. It has to be a collective national effort. This is no time to cling to old orthodoxies. Our peers and our competitors across Europe and Asia, from Australia to the United States, are rising to the challenges of the future, rebuilding their economic resilience, pursuing active industrial and regional policies, and leading in the race for the industries of the future. Because they understand, as our government seems not to, that in a changing and an unstable world, it is no longer enough, if it ever was, for government to simply get out of the way. All of our ambitions will hinge upon the success of a thriving private sector and dynamic markets. But as other countries are showing, sustained economic growth relies on an active government taking a strategic role as a partner to business. Now, that is why, over the past 18 months, we have set out Labour's Green Prosperity Plan, a plan to decarbonise our economy, to deliver energy independence, to drive down bills, to create good jobs right across our country, and to give British business the chance that they need to compete. It is why we will implement a modern industrial strategy to enshrine that spirit of partnership And it is why we will pursue the biggest pushing out of power from Westminster to unlock the potential found in every town and every city across our country. That is what this mission is about. It's about building on and unlocking the potential that I see everywhere that I go. That is what Keir and I are here to set out today. Over the past few weeks, we have worked together closely to develop this plan. The first mission in Labour's plan for a greener, fairer, more dynamic Britain. And over the years to come, we hope to have the chance to work together with all of you to deliver on these commitments in government. So now let me hand over to the person whose guiding mission I know will shape our country for the better, Keir Starmer. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Rachel, and thanks to all of you for coming here this morning to launch Labour's mission for the British economy. And I have to say, it's just fantastic looking around the rooms and see the faces of people I would now call colleagues that have worked with us on this over the last 2 years. And I hope, I say this to many people in the room, that you see your fingerprints on some of what we're saying, influencing the thinking of Rachel and of me about the partnership that we need to build. And that is a collective ambition. It is genuine partnership to secure the highest sustained growth in the G7 with good jobs, productivity growth in every part of the country, and growth which makes everyone, not just a few, better off. Now, I won't beat about the bush with an audience like this. You know that our country has distinctive strengths. Our universities, our service exports, excellence in life sciences, finance, tech and creative industries. But you also know that these strengths depend upon stability and standing, global standing, and that these two fundamentals, things we've always taken for granted in Britain, have undeniably taken a hit. Now, I know this isn't a partisan audience, but we do need to be frank about the path of decline the Tories have set us on. And it's not just the chaos of the last 12 months. There's also the 12 years that went before it. The austerity which gnawed away at our growth potential and placed the mess made, let's be blunt, in this part of the city onto the shoulders of working people. 12 years where trickle-down and trickle-out growth strategies failed to deliver a better future for them. 12 years where other countries sped past us in the race for the opportunities of tomorrow. And that's what our growth mission is about. The British people are falling behind whilst our European neighbours get richer, in the East as well as in countries like France and Germany. And I'm not comfortable about that. Not comfortable with a trajectory that will soon see Britain overtaken by Poland. Nor am I prepared to accept what the consequences of this failure would mean. I don't want a Britain where young people in our great towns and cities are left with no option but to get out. A brain drain not just to London or Edinburgh, but to Lyon, Munich and Warsaw. That's not the future our country deserves. But nobody owes us a future either. We've got to get it back ourselves, claw back that sense of stability and standing. Because when the big questions that echo around rooms like this are raised, where does our money go? Where do our jobs go? Where does our investment in a better future go? I want the answer that comes back to be a resounding, why not Britain? And that's why I went to Davos with Rachel last year. And we've met thousands of business leaders over the last year or two, CEOs all over the country. As I say, many of you are here today, many of you we've been talking to for a considerable period of time. And we've listened, we've heard loud and clear about the need for certainty, that basic truth, chaos has a cost, that investors need a clear framework with policies that are always fully costed, fiscal rules sound and followed rigorously, constraints accepted, institutions respected and not bypassed, a rock of economic stability. Our entire mission for growth is built on that, and don't doubt it for a second. But honestly, isn't this the least we should expect? I think so. Britain needs certainty, yes, but also change. And this is my real ambition, the goal that fires my imagination. A new model for economic growth, growth from the grassroots, where wealth is created everywhere, by everyone, for everyone. Where we take off the blinkers to the potential of an active government that sets the direction. And where we come together in a partnership, raise our collective sights beyond the day-to-day, deliver the long-term solutions our country needs. So here in this document, the mission: secure the highest sustained growth in the G7, a measurable goal, an invitation for the British people to judge us on whether they feel better off after 5 years of a Labour government, but also the building blocks of a clear strategy, the first steps of a credible long-term plan, a plan which represents the determination of my party to create more wealth, lead Britain out of its low-wage, high-tax doom loop, get our confidence, our standing, and our future back. So 5 shifts in Britain's growth model, from chaos to certainty, from hoarding potential to unlocking power in every community, from lagging to leading on science, technology, green growth, and the opportunities of tomorrow. A labour market that moves from too many insecure jobs to good jobs for all. And a Britain that is resilient to global shocks and open to global trade. In each of these 5 areas, we have 3 clear commitments, 15 steps on the path to national renewal. Important steps like our modern industrial strategy, we were just talking about that this morning, that will get everyone around the table and remove the barriers to investment. That partnership, Bob, bringing business into government with us. A green prosperity plan that will provide the catalytic investment needed to become a clean energy superpower. A more powerful British business bank that will support startups to grow and scale. More flexible skills, training, apprentices, and short courses which can train coders and programmers in weeks. And a fixed Brexit deal, a reset relationship with the EU for the whole of the country, not just Northern Ireland. All this and more is in this document. And on growth, it's the only show in town. But I also want to be straight with you and with the British people. Yes, our missions are ambitious. The highest sustained growth in the G7. That should be a sharp intake of breath for anyone in this room and those that we've been discussing this with. But there's a humility that comes with this ambition. It's an important part of what we have to say. We can't do this alone. Change comes from all of us. Growth comes from all of us. Mission-driven government is about much more than cherry-picking the numbers on a spreadsheet and saying, job done. It's about national pride, a national renewal, not state control or pure free markets, but a genuine partnership, sleeves rolled up, working for the national interest. The how is as important as the what. Partnership is an economic imperative. So today, I ask you to join me. Now is the time to be part of something bigger, a partnership between business, unions, civil society, communities, between all our 4 nations, and most radically of all, between politicians and people. A national mission that changes not just what we do on growth, but how we do it. Because unless we unlock the potential of every region and every nation, we will never fix our economy. And that is my fundamental belief. A belief that grounds my offer of partnership in a driving purpose. That's what we've got to unite our country around. And look, I don't want to mess people around either. I want everyone on board. But we do have to accept the need for a new model. I'm serious. We've got to change how the country grows and who it grows for. We've got to find the courage to take on vested interests. That lack of will is part of what's holding Britain back. I met the people running the national grid recently, be pleased to hear this, and they said to me, if we want to get anywhere near our goals on net zero, we need to build more infrastructure in the next 7 years than we've done in the last 30. This is a problem. Nothing reeks more of decline than the idea Britain can no longer do big things that benefit working people. I will never accept that. So if you think it's not government's role to shape markets, that we're only here to serve them, that a labour market which locks in low pay and productivity is something beyond reform, or that the planning system should favour the already wealthy, not the new houses, wind farms and laboratories we need to create more wealth, then that's not going to work for us. That's not going to work for growth. We won't deliver what our country needs. Now, you'll appreciate we put a lot of work into this, and we know growth is the answer. Every one of our national missions depends on it. Safe streets, an NHS fit for the future, tearing down the barriers to opportunity, a clean energy superpower. All of these are good for growth. But all of them require growth, the lifeblood of a dynamic economy and a strong society. It's higher wages, stronger communities, more vibrant high streets, public services that lift you up, less poverty, more opportunity, warmer homes, healthier food, holidays, meals out, more cash in your pocket, an end to the suffocating cost of living crisis. And the only chance we have to regain that standing, to get our future back, and give that answer, why not Britain? Thank you very much. Good win yesterday. We've got some questions from the media now. So Antonello, I think, is first. Yes, got you.
Thank you very much. A question on migration. You have just talked about the young living in the country, but we also know that this country desperately needs workers, mostly low-skilled ones, and there are more than 1 million job vacancies, and the NHS itself needs more than 120,000 new workers. But you previously said that UK businesses must win off cheap labour and that the low-pay model for growth is no longer working. So how can you find a compromise? How can you fix this issue of job vacancies? And are you ready to relax the rules on migration if this situation persists? And secondly, very quickly, as today is a big Brexit day, apparently. If you become PM, what would be your first concrete act to have a better relationship with the EU, as you promised? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look, on this question you raised, it's obviously a huge question. It came up at the CBI conference that I did in the tail end of last year in October, I think, and also at the NFU conference that I did last week. And I was clear to both of those audiences that we recognise the short-term problem. And we're not going to be anti-business or anti-growth or anti-farming about this and allow short-term problems to create long-term problems. But we do have to get ourselves off the idea that migration is the answer to all of our problems. We've had a skills problem in this country for decades. Before Brexit, I was the shadow immigration minister, and I went around the country talking to businesses about and asked them a simple question: what's the single biggest impediment to your growth in the next 5 years? To which the answer was skills. We don't have the skills we need where we need them. So we've got to fix that. And, you know, we've also got, and Jonathan Ashworth has been doing a huge amount of work on this, we've got many people who were in the labour market 2 or 3 years ago who aren't in the labour market now. We need to have a long-term plan. So the answer is, in the short term, of course, we'll work with businesses to ensure that they've got the skills that they need. But we've got to accept that that is exactly what we've been talking about. It's a sticking plaster, because the long-term solution is actually about the skills, about the investment, and about making sure that we get the workforce we've got here in the UK back into work. On Brexit, I strongly believe that the single most important thing for an incoming Labour government is to restore trust and credibility in the process. We've been bedevilled in recent years by a lack of trust. We'll see where today gets us with the protocol, but certainly in all my dealings and conversations, it's a basic lack of trust that's been the single biggest impediment. Thank you very much. I think we're going to go to Stefan at Politico. Stefan.
Thank you, Keir. Stefan Bosch at Politico. Firstly, many businesses have been really concerned about Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act and the effect it will have on business in the UK and Europe. Are you willing to respond to that in a similar way the EU has, baking it into your green subsidies plan you've already announced? And then secondly, on the Northern Ireland Protocol negotiations, how would you have handled them differently? What would have your plan been to solve this issue?
Good. Stefan, just on the Inflation Reduction Act. Firstly, this is obviously a big, big issue, and when Rachel and I were in Davos, it was discussed uphill and down dale, including the EU response. And my sadness at Davos was the fact that the UK wasn't part of that discussion. We weren't at the table. It was felt that the UK somehow drifted off the international stage. And so the first thing we would do is, and this was our statement of intent when we were in Davos, is we're going to reverse that. We're going to be on the stage. We're going to be part of those discussions. On the specifics, our Green Prosperity Plan is already a plan to address some of the issues that the IRA is addressing in America, and therefore we will build on those plans. In terms of the protocol, my long-held belief, having talked to businesses in particular in Northern Ireland, but also in Dublin, is that there are practical steps forward in relation to the protocol that would make the protocol work a lot better, that could have been taken 18 months, 2 years ago, but we've been stuck in an impasse. I do think this is an opportunity. I think probably everybody in this room now recognises that the EU and the UK are probably in agreement or very near to agreement at this stage. The question will be whether the Prime Minister has got the strength to sell it to his backbenchers or not. And I think many people will be frustrated that this is the loop we've been stuck in for a very, very long time. And it's not something you'd have with a Labour government, because we don't have those divisions in our party on this issue. Thank you, Stefan. Ben from the Mirror. Ben.
Thank you, Sir Keir. Ben Glaze from the Daily Mirror. You talked about increasing wages in your speech. What do you think the level of the minimum wage should be? Would a Labour government support a real living wage as opposed to the national living wage?
Yeah, Ben, thank you for raising that, because we do want wages to go up, want living standards to go up. I want this to be determined independently by a process that puts living standards at the heart of this, so that we can change the whole approach. But Ben, I would also say that incoming Labour governments, of course, want higher wages, higher living standards. Of course we do. But what we're answering is the question of how you're going to do that then. And you're not really going to get higher living standards, higher wages, unless you have a proper strategy for growth, a long-term strategy for growth. And that's why we've seen the failure of growth over the last 13 years. Trying to put all politics aside, in the last 13 years, we haven't had growth where we need it. It's been far too slow for a combined number of reasons. We've got to turn that around. And that's why the strategy for growth is also the strategy for higher wages and higher living standards. And I think it's clear from what I said on Thursday, from what Rachel said and what I've said this morning, the model for growth that we are absolutely focused on is a model that increases living standards everywhere. There is a model for growth which says you could put even more into London and the South East. And I've got nothing against London and the South East to do a lot of heavy carrying just at the moment. But I don't want a model for Britain that says this is where you create the wealth and then we sort of basically redistribute it through various mechanisms to the rest of the country. I want that productivity, those good jobs everywhere across the country. And I don't just mean to the next city either, by the way. Lisa will be looking at me on this, checking that I'm absolutely focused on it. But it's got to be something, it can't be just London and Manchester and Leeds. It's got to be everywhere, all the towns around as well. Thank you, Ben. Then I'll go to Alita from The Guardian.
Thank you,
Alisa.
Sir Keir. You have said many times that working people are being clobbered by the current tax burden. So do you hope to be able to reduce personal taxes after the election if you win?
Well, look, I want to create an economy where growth is the answer we give before tax or spend. And let me just spell that out. If the growth in the last 13 years had been at the same rate as growth under the last Labour government, we would have £40 billion more to spend on our public services without raising a penny in tax. And that's why my first answer on tax is always growth. Because if you're just taxing a diminishing return, then you're not really going to get anywhere. So yes, we want to make sure, that the tax burden on working people is as low as it possibly can be. We know how hard the cost of living crisis is hitting people and that need for money in your pocket at the end of the month. But the answer on tax, the answer on spend has to start with growth. And that figure of £40 billion without raising a penny more in tax, if you had the same growth as the last Labour government, really makes its own case. Eleanor from iNews. Eleanor.
Hi, Keir. There's been a lot of talk recently about the economic impacts of Brexit and how that's damaging the economy. How would a Labour government ensure that Brexit could be utilised properly to grow the economy?
Yeah, thank you, Eleanor. The first thing I'd say is I think we are fooling ourselves if we think that the only problem with growth is Brexit. Because if you look at those 13 years, the last 13 years on growth, we haven't had growth, meaningful growth, in any of those 13 years. So the problem we've had on growth and skills and investment predated Brexit. And therefore, to simply say the problem is Brexit, the answer is Brexit, I think fails to deal with the underlying issues, which are so important about investment and stability. And whenever I talk to CEOs, businesses, including people in this room, about the single biggest driver of investment, it is stability. The profound message from places like Davos was, look, we do have the potential to invest, but all the time you're going through 3 prime ministers, 4 chancellors and 4 budgets in 12 months, that may be politically quite amusing, but it is not creating the circumstances for investment in the UK just at the moment. So if we're going to overcome this, we have to create those conditions of stability. On Brexit itself, I do think there are improvements that we can make to the deal. That's why we will reset the relationship, and I've set them out. I mean, it obviously starts with the protocol, but it's got to go way beyond the protocol, and absolute clarity about the high standards that we want, the collaboration we want when it comes to science and research. I think there's much more we can do in the field of security, particularly after the 12 months of the awful conflict in Ukraine. So I do think there are real changes to the Brexit deal to improve it. That would be one part of a plan for growth, but it can't be the whole plan for growth. Otherwise, I think we will risk not dealing with the fundamental issues that underpin the problem we've had with growth for a very long time. I've got Jack from The Sun. Jack.
Thank you, Sir Keir. You've said that you would back any Brexit deal negotiated by the Prime Minister. As a details man, how can you back a deal which you haven't even seen? And would you like Northern Ireland to be inside or outside the remit of the European Court of Justice?
Jack, look, thank you for that. I've obviously, as you probably know, I worked in Northern Ireland for 5 years, so I know Northern Ireland very, very well. Spent a lot of time there recently talking through what the issues are with the protocol at length, particularly with businesses. There's a very good business group in Belfast who have put together a 14-point plan of what they need changed. So, yes, we haven't seen the deal yet, but I'm completely across what the issues are and what the practical solutions are. And I think everybody in the room probably knows what are the issues that are outstanding and what are the likely resolutions to those. And frankly, any step in those directions is going to be an improvement on what we've got, which is why I say with confidence we expect to be able to back the deal, if there is one this afternoon or whenever we may see it. It's not going to be a surprise. It's not going to be out of the blue. We've been working on these problems for a very, very long time and know what some of the solutions are. Look, it is almost inevitable that the ECJ will have to play some part in this. I think the Prime Minister recognises that, the government recognises that, but we've got to make progress. I think, we owe it to the people of Northern Ireland to get on and fix this. They're desperate to have this fixed. They deserve to have it fixed, and we need to fix it for the whole of the UK. Thank you, Jack. And then I've got Theo from LBC.
Theo Usher from LBC. In terms of looking at immigration and the immigration shortages to this country, the labour shortages in the market here, do you see the solution to that as granting access to young people, workers in the European Union, free access to to Great Britain, or do you see that sitting within a visa scheme, a special visa for labour in agriculture, in the health sector? How do you envisage that if you become Prime Minister?
Thank you, Theo. It's more likely to be a visa scheme, but I go back to what I said at the beginning, which is we will not be anti-business. We will not allow short-term problems to gum up the system in a way which further undermines our economy. But we are looking beyond that. We want to fix the fundamentals. And I'm still struck by how many children leave school without the skills they're actually going to need for the jobs they're likely to be doing, the lives they're likely to be leading. Still struck by the fact that many businesses still don't have the skills that they need in the places that they need them. We've got to fix that. Now, I know this is a big problem. We've had this problem for 10 years or more. But what I don't want to do is simply say, well, look, let's just have more visas over here, fill the immediate problem, but not really fix the fundamentals, because in a sense that goes to the heart of what is a mission-led government. I know there have been people saying, well, it's not very retail. Well, true. But if you want to fix your economy in such a way that actually helps people pay their bills at the end of the day, raises their living standards, you've got to do the fundamentals. And this phrase, sticking plaster politics, is such an important phrase for me. I'm totally frustrated by governments that just get by, that wait until we're at crisis point, then put a sticking plaster on, then just wait until the next problem, and then another sticking plaster. We've been doing that for 13 years, and that's why we're in the problems, why we're in such a deep hole. I'm absolutely determined that we're going to fix that. I want people at the end of a 5-year Labour government to genuinely feel better off, to have their living standards better, to have public services that actually serve them in their community. That won't work if we just do sticking plaster politics. It will only work if we are honest enough to say these are the fundamentals, these are the 5 things that we must fix, that we'll be absolutely focused on as a Labour government, and where you will see material change in 5 years of a Labour government. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you in the roundtable in due course. Thank you.
told them.